Most sellers in East Tennessee sit down at the closing table expecting one number and leave with something significantly different. Not because they were cheated, because nobody walked them through what selling actually costs before they listed.
We watch sellers lose $20,000 to $30,000, not to the market, but to decisions they made in the first 2 weeks that followed them all the way to closing day.
The number sellers focus on is their list price, but your list price is not your profit. By the time you subtract commission, closing costs, concessions, repairs, and carrying costs of the home that sat longer than it should have, the gap between what your home sells for and what you actually walk away with can be $40,000 to $65,000 on a $500,000 home.
And that part that should get your attention, a significant portion of that gap is within your control if you know where to look before you list.
We're Jason and
Ivette Fields
with Devoted Home Group at Keller Williams, East Tennessee's local real estate experts.
In this video, we're walking you through every real cost of selling your home, not just the obvious ones, but the hidden ones, the negotiables, and the places where sellers consistently leave money on the table without realizing it.
Stay with us through the end because the last section is where we show you how two sellers can sell for the exact same price. One walks away with $20,000 more. That part is worth more than anything else in this video. Let's deal with the number everyone reacts to first. Commission.
We're using 6% in a $500,000 home for this example. That's $30,000, and every time we say that number out loud, the reaction is the same.
Wait, the agent's making $30,000 on my house?
No. Here's the actual math.
That $30,000 splits immediately between two agents. Each agent splits a portion of that with their brokerage.
And after taxes, marketing, insurance, and the systems that run that transaction from contract to close, the individual agent takes home a fraction of what the number looks on paper.
But here's what the number is actually buying you, and this is part most sellers miss.
When a buyer has to pay their own agent out of pocket, that bill lands on top of their own down payment and closing costs.
For most buyers, that's the difference between qualifying for your home and walking away.
Less buyers means less competition. Less competition means less leverage, and less leverage means a lower final price and a longer road to get there.
That commission isn't a fee. It's what keeps your buyer pool full and your negotiating position intact.
For most sellers, it returns more than it really costs.
And before we move on, here's something worth knowing.
When you go buy your next home, you're almost certainly going to benefit from that same structure.
In most transactions, you're not writing a separate check to your buyer's agent either.
No, it works both ways.
Next, closing costs. And this is where most sellers get a genuine surprise because it's almost always less than expected.
In East Tennessee, seller closing costs typically run under 1% of the sales price. On a $500,000 home, roughly $2,500 to $5,000.
Title fees, transfer tax, closing services, real costs, but not where sellers lose money.
Keep it in the calculation though. Don't lose sleep over it.
So commission and closing costs are manageable. Where do sellers actually bleed money?
The next two categories. And almost nobody talks about them clearly before they list.
Concessions are where your net gets quietly dismantled, and most sellers don't see it coming because they're focused on the offer price and not what's buried inside the contract.
Today's buyers aren't just negotiating price. They're asking you for closing assistance, interest rates buy downs to reduce their monthly payment, repair credits.
Sometimes all three in the same offer. We're seeing concession requests range from $5,000 to $15,000 or more depending on the home and buyer's situation.
Here's what separates the sellers who protect their bottom line from the ones who don't.
We had a seller who received an offer $3,000 below their target net. They rejected it on principle, didn't even counter.
The buyers walked. The home went back on the market and sat for 45 more days.
Congratulations, you closed yourself.
By the time they closed, carrying costs, price reduction they hadn't planned for, and a second round of negotiations from a weaker position,
that $3,000 decision cost them closer to $18,000.
the sellers who come out ahead aren't the ones who reject everything.
They're the ones who know which concessions to absorb, which ones to restructure, and which ones to decline before emotion gets involved.
Repairs are where sellers most consistently overspend in the wrong places and underspend in the ones that matter.
Yeah, we've watched sellers pour $20,000 in cosmetic upgrade, boards, countertops, fresh paint, new fixtures, and
then get blindsided by something structural during the home inspection. 15-year-old roof, an HVAC system at the end of its life, crawl space with moisture damage.
well, buyers will forgive a dated kitchen, But they will not forgive a $15,000 roof they didn't know about, and neither will the lender.
Realistic repair budget. A few $100s on a well-maintained home, up to $5,000 to $10,000 if there are deferred mechanical or structural issues.
The seller who control their cost are the ones who walk through the home with a contractor's eye before any buyer ever steps inside.
You'll find the problems first. You'll fix what matters.
You control the story instead of reacting to it under pressure.
Now the cost nobody puts on paper, and the one that surprises sellers most when they see it in writing.
That's time.
Every month your home sits on the market, you're carrying it. Mortgage, taxes, insurance, utilities.
On a $500,000 home with a typical mortgage, that's $300 to $4,500. That's per month in holding costs alone.
But here's what the number doesn't capture.
A home that's been sitting 60 to 90 days doesn't just cost you carrying expenses, it costs you negotiating position.
Buyers who see the days on the market climbing start asking, what's wrong? They come in lower.
They ask for more concessions. They feel the leverage shifting, because it is.
The homes that sell in the first 2 weeks don't just close faster.
They close stronger.
That's not a coincidence.
It's the direct result of going to market right the first time.
If this is helpful, hit subscribe. We put out videos weekly to help East Tennessee sellers and buyers understand exactly what's happening in this market. Avoid costly mistakes and make decisions they won't regret at the closing table.
Most sellers come to us with a number in their head. What their neighbors sold for, what Zillow says, the estimate.
That's not how it works. That's not how any of this works.
And what they need to make before the next move.
Here's what that number doesn't include.
Commission, $30,000.
Closing costs, $2,500 to $5,000.
Concessions, $5,000 to $15,000.
Repairs, $2,000 to $10,000.
Carrying cost, if the home sits, $3,000 to $4,500 per month.
Total cost to sell, somewhere between $40,000 and $65,000, and significantly more if the home sits and takes price reductions.
That is the number that actually matters.
Not what your home lists for, not what it sells for.
What you walk away with after everything.
Here's what the number doesn't tell you, how much of it is within your control.
Two sellers, nearly identical homes, same neighborhood, same week, same sales price.
One walk away with $20,000 more than the other.
Hey, that's not because the market favored that seller.
Because they priced correctly from day one and never needed a reduction.
Because they fixed the right things before they listed instead of reacting to inspection findings under pressure.
Because when the concession request came in, they knew exactly how to respond without giving away their position.
That's so important. That $20,000 difference wasn't luck. It was a strategy built before the sign ever went in the yard.
Your list price is what buyers see. Your net is what actually matters. And your net is decided before you list, not at the closing table.
If you're thinking about selling in the next 3 to 6 months, the smartest move you can make right now is understanding your true net before you make any other decisions.
The market doesn't reward optimism, it rewards strategy.
We're Ivette and Jason Fields, your resource for anything real estate in East Tennessee. Adios, amigos. Commission, $30,000.
Wait, the agent is making $30,000 on my house?
Say it again.
The agent is making $30,000 on my house?
Say it again.
The agent is making $30,000 on my house?
Say it again.
The agent is making $30,000 on my house?
Insurance and the system that are run that.
Oh my God, bro.
Give it this little house.
Fuck, what's going on today?
I don't know.
No,
it's
you're
your
good,
beard.
you're good.
It's the
Right
beard.
there, right there. Net is what you actually. I've never had a day like this. What is it? That's good right there.
Beard, baby. It's taken away from your brain.
We are exhausted. This video was produced by our creative team, Aglaya Media.
You can find more details in the description.